Imagine waking up in like a really small, totally sterile room. Your vision is blurry, you're completely disoriented, you've got these medical tubes attached all over you, and you are millions of miles away from everything you've ever known.
Oh, don't forget the company.
Right. You look over and your only companions are two mummified corpses. And meanwhile, a ship's computer is relentlessly, just mechanically asking you, what is 2 plus 2?
It's terrifying. I mean, it's the ultimate locked room mystery. The room is the centrifuge that's just hurtling through the frozen vacuum of deep space.
Yeah, and the ultimate catch here, you can't even remember your own name, let alone the terrifying reality that you are humanity's absolute last hope for survival.
The stakes are quite literally the survival of the human species. You're trapped in this puzzle where, the penalty for failing to remember your high school physics is the extinction of Earth.
Exactly. So, welcome to the deep dive. Our mission today is to explore the 2021 science fiction phenomenon, Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir.
Such an incredible book.
It really is. And with the highly anticipated film adaptation, directed by Phil Lord and Christopher Miller, starring Ryan Gosling and Sandra Hüller, having just hit theaters on March 20, 2026, we are breaking down why this specific story has captivated millions.
We're going to tear into the really dense, verified hard science, examine what the fiercest critics are saying, and lay out exactly why you need to bump this to the absolute top of your reading list.
Seriously, buy a copy before you even think about buying a movie ticket. You want to read this first.
For sure. Because Andy Weir created a monumental paradigm-shifting success with this one. He really proved that The Martian was no fluke. I mean, Project Hail Mary spent 41 weeks on the New York Times bestseller list.
Wow. 41 weeks.
Yeah, and it was a 2022 Hugo Award finalist, and it took home the 2021 Dragon Award for Best Science Fiction Novel. So we're going to unpack the astrophysics that make this plot tick, the divided critical reception, and the absolute best formats for you to consume this story.
Because the medium you choose actually alters your understanding of the narrative, which is wild. But, okay, if we're going to talk about a guy waking up with amnesia next to two corpses, we have to start with the obvious question. How did he get there?
Right. The protagonist, Ryland Grace.
Yeah, Ryland Grace. And what fascinates me is that he is not like a chiseled space marine. He's not a seasoned astronaut with thousands of hours in a simulator. Ryland Grace is a disgraced, failed molecular biologist.
He really is.
He left academia after being totally ostracized for his contrarian theories on alien life. And he ended up as an enthusiastic junior high school science teacher.
And that disconnect,
Yeah.
Between the gravity of the mission and the protagonist's resume is the entire engine of the book. Weir has actually talked openly about his creative process here.
Oh, really? What did he say?
Well, with his previous famous protagonist, Mark Watney from The Martian, Weir admitted he basically wrote an idealized version of his own best traits. Watney had all of Weir's good qualities magnified, with his bad ones conveniently erased.
Sure, he was like the ultimate competent guy.
Exactly. But with Ryland Grace, Weir attempted to weave a character from whole cloth, someone entirely separate from his own psyche.
Right, but I mean, Weir also freely admits that Grace still ended up with his own trademark smartass sense of humor.
True. It's
Wow.
hard to escape yourself entirely as an author.
Yeah, and Weir defends it by saying humor is his secret weapon of exposition. If you can make the science genuinely funny, the reader just completely forgives the massive textbook-level info dumps.
Which is a totally necessary survival tactic for him when dealing with hard sci-fi. The humor acts as, like, a lubricant.
Mm.
Without it, reading about orbital mechanics and cellular respiration feels like homework.
Exactly.
With Ryland Grace, the humor feels like a very natural defense mechanism for a guy who is completely out of his depth.
Okay, let's unpack this setup, though, because I have to push back a little here. The entire world seemingly unites. They pour unlimited, unprecedented global resources into building this one ship to stop a galactic apocalypse. And humanity's ultimate champion is a disgraced middle school teacher who can't even remember his own name. I mean, how does a global coalition let that happen?
Well, without spoiling the intricate flashbacks that slowly reveal exactly why he's on that ship, I'll just say it comes down to a matter of desperate necessity, not first choice.
Okay, fair enough.
But from a storytelling perspective, grounding those astronomical existential stakes in a really relatable, deeply flawed character that's Weir's signature magic trick, Grace doesn't wake up with a utility belt and a master plan.
No, he wakes up with a massive headache.
Exactly. A headache and a lot of random, disjointed scientific facts bouncing around his skull.
Yeah.
And because he has to figure everything out from absolute scratch, testing gravity, testing the air, analyzing his own blood, it makes you feel like you're locked in that room solving the mystery right alongside him in real time.
So we've got our unlikely hero, but what is the actual threat that justifies a one-way suicide mission?
That would be the astrophage.
Into the astrophage, yeah. It translates to star eater. It's this mysterious, incredibly aggressive alien microorganism that is rapidly draining our sun's energy. It's reproducing at this exponential rate, dimming the sun, and because of this, Earth is facing an inevitable, sudden, catastrophic ice age.
Right, a complete extinction-level event.
And humanity discovers that Tau Ceti, which is a nearby star, is mysteriously unaffected by the astrophage, so they shoot Grace over there to find out why.
Which forces us right into the hard astrophysics of the astrophage. And this is where it gets so cool. Real-world astrophysicists like Dr. McCleary have actually analyzed Weir's math and verified that the biology and physics of this organism are remarkably self-consistent.
That's insane that real scientists vetted this.
It is. To survive the intense incinerating heat of a star, the astrophage regulates its internal temperature to exactly 96.415 degrees Celsius.
Wait, hold on. It's living on the surface of the sun, but it stays at 96 degrees. You're losing me. How does a microscopic bug not instantly vaporize?
So this is where Weir bridges biology with deep quantum mechanics. The astrophage absorbs the intense thermal energy of the star, right? But instead of heating up and burning, it uses that energy.
Okay.
Once it hits exactly 96.415 degrees Celsius, the protons inside the organism collide with massive kinetic energy, and that collision instantly creates pairs of neutrinos.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's essentially converting all that extra lethal heat into mass the neutrinos and storing them.
Okay, so instead of the analogy I was thinking of earlier, like a swarm of locusts eating a donut shop, it's actually more like a microscopic pressure cooker.
I like that.
The star is constantly turning up the heat, and to keep from exploding, the astrophage vents the excess energy by turning it into neutrinos.
That is a brilliant way to visualize it. It's a pressure cooker that converts heat into an entirely different state of matter to survive. But Weir doesn't stop there. He utilizes the concept of Majorana particles.
Which are what, exactly?
It's a real theoretical concept where certain particles are their own antiparticles. In the book, when two of these stored neutrinos collide, they annihilate each other, turning back into pure energy, specifically photons that emit a distinct wavelength of infrared light.
And Weir coins this the Petrova wavelength, right?
Exactly.
Which explains how they travel. They shoot out this light to propel themselves through space. But wait, neutrinos famously pass through almost all ordinary matter. Like millions of them are passing through our bodies right now. How does a microscopic bug contain them inside its tiny pressure cooker?
That is the genius of what Weir calls super cross-sectionality.
Super cross-sectionality.
Yeah, it's an invented, localized quantum effect. Normally, at the quantum level, particles can sometimes just pass through solid barriers. It's a phenomenon known as quantum tunneling.
Like a ghost walking through a wall.
Exactly like that. But the astrophage's biology creates a localized field that completely stops quantum tunneling. It makes the walls of its cells perfectly solid at a quantum level, turning the organism into the universe's most perfect, leak-proof battery.
It's terrifying, but incredibly elegant. But Ryland Grace doesn't have to face this elegant nightmare alone for long. Enter the book's absolute secret weapon, Rocky.
Oh, Rocky.
Yes. Rocky is a non-humanoid alien, an Iridian, who Grace encounters out in the dark of the Tau Ceti system. Rocky is also the sole survivor of a desperate mission to save his own home planet from the exact same astrophage threat.
And this interaction completely shifts the tone of the narrative. It goes from a solo survival story to an interstellar buddy comedy, but one built on profound mutual respect.
Yes.
You have two beings from entirely different evolutionary trees operating in different atmospheres who have to figure out how to communicate, and they do it through the universal language of math and science.
Now, if you've seen the 2026 film adaptation or, even just the trailers with Ryan Gosling, you've probably noticed some distinct creative liberties regarding Rocky.
Oh, definitely.
In the movie, directed by Phil Lord and Christopher Miller, Rocky is portrayed as this hyperactive, zany tornado. He's rolling all around the ship, moving at lightning speed, largely serving as physical comic relief to balance Gosling's deadpan delivery.
Yeah, the filmmakers adapted it for a visual medium where fast, kinetic movement pops on screen. But that is a massive departure from the text, and it's really why you absolutely must read the book.
The book is so different in that regard.
It is. In the novel, the Iridian physiology is incredibly dense.
Mm.
Rocky is much slower. In certain environments, Grace actually has to physically carry Rocky around, and Rocky's demeanor isn't hyperactive at all. He acts out of a genuine, quiet awe of human technology.
Right, the pacing of their interactions in the book is much more methodical. It's a slow burn of building trust, not just a barrage of visual gags.
Precisely.
Also, fun fact about the adaptation, the movie entirely removed the concept of Grace bringing a handgun into space.
Which was probably for the best.
Yeah, when the book came out, a massive contingent of fans on Reddit pointed out that firing a projectile weapon on a thin-walled, pressurized spacecraft millions of miles from help is a spectacularly terrible idea. So the filmmakers just quietly scrubbed the gun from the plot, which I think was a highly logical fix.
It was a very smart editorial choice.
Okay.
But looking past the differences, what is truly compelling about Rocky and Grace in the novel is the underlying philosophy. It's a celebration of the scientific method, yes, but it's more than just math and pendulums.
Right.
The book posits a profoundly optimistic idea that evolution, which is fundamentally lazy, selfish, and driven strictly by survival of the fittest, can somehow still produce beings capable of ultimate self-sacrifice. Two entirely different species, separated by light years, can both decide to lay down their lives for the greater good of their people.
It really is beautiful. The emotional payoff is huge. But we can't just shower it with praise. We need to critically examine the divide because this book is absolutely not without its detractors.
Very true.
If you're going to spend your money and time on this, managing expectations is key.
It's crucial. While the overarching sentiment and the sales numbers are highly positive, there is a very vocal segment of readers and professional critics who found significant structural flaws in Weir's writing.
Yeah, many reviewers on platforms like Goodreads and Reddit point out that Weir really struggles with character development. There is a persistent, very loud complaint that Ryland Grace is essentially just Mark Watney Pro Max.
Watney Pro Max, yeah.
Meaning he's just another quirky, nerdy, wisecracking white guy who somehow handles existential terror and the crushing isolation of deep space with a smirk and a pop culture reference.
The critiques extend well beyond Ryland Grace, too. Critics have noted Weir's heavy reliance on flat, somewhat outdated Hollywood stereotypes for his supporting cast back on Earth.
Right, like the Russian scientist.
Exactly, Dr. Irina Petrova, who is constantly and lazily associated with vodka. Or you have the mission commander, Strat, who operates with such ruthless, unfeeling efficiency. She reads more like a programmed robot than a nuanced human being burdened with the fate of the world.
Plus, there are plenty of complaints about the prose itself being clunky, and some undeniably juvenile sex jokes from characters like Dubois and Shapiro that left a lot of readers rolling their eyes.
Yeah, the humor doesn't land for everyone.
No, it doesn't. But the biggest narrative critique I see is that Grace rarely faces real debilitating adversity. Every time he encounters a world-ending problem, he solves it procedurally, usually on his first or second attempt in the lab.
Right. The criticism there is that it completely lacks the desperate, grinding failure that characterizes much of traditional dramatic tension. The emotional devastation of trying, failing, and losing something vital just isn't present in the problem-solving loop.
But wait, let me challenge those critics for a second. Isn't that exactly what people want from an Andy Weir book? I mean, we aren't picking up Project Hail Mary expecting a deep Dickensian character study of the human soul.
That's a fair point.
We are reading it specifically to watch a really smart guy enthusiastically science his way out of a multi-billion-dollar death trap. Does the lack of deep character growth really matter if the plot moves this fast and the puzzles are this clever?
What's fascinating here is that question actually splits science fiction readers into two very distinct camps.
Okay, how so?
Well, for the first camp, the heavy info dumps, the lack of emotional breakdown, and the repetitive step-by-step problem-solving feel like an absolute slog. To them, it's akin to reading a physics textbook disguised as a novel.
Right.
But for the second camp, matching the repetitive, methodical slog of real-life science is exactly what elevates the book to a masterpiece. It operates purely as a procedural thriller. The tension doesn't come from interpersonal drama. The tension derives entirely from the math and the physical constraints of the universe.
It's a puzzle box. You aren't reading it to watch someone cry. You're reading it to see exactly how the gears fit together to save the day. Which brings us to a highly practical piece of this deep dive.
Okay, let's hear it.
If you are convinced to jump into this story, and despite the critiques, you absolutely should be, you need to know how to consume it. Because the format you choose drastically alters how you digest all this complex information.
Oh, definitely. The medium through which you experience Project Hail Mary heavily influences both your cognitive load and the emotional resonance of the story.
So let's start with the audiobook because it is widely considered the definitive way to experience the specific narrative. I mean, it won the 2022 Audio Award for Audiobook of the Year, and for good reason.
Ray Porter's an amazing.
He delivers a masterclass performance. But the real genius is the production choice regarding Rocky. Without spoiling the exact mechanics of how they communicate, Rocky's alien language is inherently musical. In the audiobook, the producers used actual melodic musical chords and sound effects perfectly overlaid with Porter's narration whenever Rocky speaks.
And that audio production bridges the gap between the human and the alien in a profoundly visceral way. It creates a level of sensory immersion that physical text simply cannot replicate.
You literally hear it.
Yeah, you don't just read that Rocky sounds like a chord progression. You literally hear the emotional tone of his musical language. However, if you are a reader who wants to scrutinize the math, track the equations, and truly visualize the engineering, the Kindle 11th Generation Edition offers unique technical advantages.
Yeah, the Kindle features actively fight the dense science. The X-ray feature is absolutely perfect for keeping the large international cast straight, like instantly reminding yourself what Steve Hatch built or what Commander Yao's specific role was before the launch.
Furthermore, the digital format allows you to interact with the scalable diagrams of the spacecraft architecture. When Weir spends 3 pages describing the ship's centrifuges and how artificial gravity is being generated through rotational velocity, you can actually pull up the schematics and zoom in to understand the physical space Grace is trapped in.
But if you want the absolute holy grail of consuming this book, you have to try immersion reading or whisper sync.
Oh yes, that's the best of both worlds.
It really is. This is where you play the audible narration complete with Ray Porter and the musical alien chords, while your Kindle actively highlights the text on the screen in real time. It is the perfect way to digest the complex molecular biology of the astrophage. You get the visual anchor for the math, while fully enjoying the emotional performance.
Engaging both your visual and auditory processing centers significantly aids memory retention, especially for the highly technical jargon Weir employs. It keeps you moving through the dense sections without losing momentum.
But I have to ask, are we losing the traditional essence of reading by relying on digital crutches? Is using an X-ray tool to remember characters and relying on audio sound effects to understand an alien somehow cheapening the act of reading, or is this just the natural next evolution of storytelling?
I wouldn't frame them as crutches at all. Instead, these tools are democratizing hard science fiction.
Democratizing it, okay.
Yeah, the genre has historically had a very high barrier to entry, intimidating readers who fear they aren't smart enough to keep up. These formats lower that barrier. They ensure that you, a listener who perhaps doesn't have an advanced astrophysics degree, can still fully grasp the global stakes, laugh at the humor, and feel the emotional weight of the story without getting frustrated and abandoning the book. It opens up the genre to a much broader audience.
So what does this all mean for you? Project Hail Mary is a thrilling, overwhelmingly optimistic puzzle box of a story. Whether you choose to read the Kindle edition to scrutinize the math of quantum tunneling, or you let Ray Porter perform the audiobook for you while you commute to work, it is an unforgettable narrative about friendship, survival, and the sheer indomitable power of human ingenuity.
At its core, the novel reminds us that our intellect, our curiosity, and our capacity for cooperation are our absolute greatest survival traits as a species.
Exactly. So before you head to the theater to see Ryan Gosling and Sandra Hüller on the big screen, we strongly encourage you to grab a copy of the book. Buy the Kindle version, grab the audiobook, or get both for that immersion reading experience. Understanding the deep science and experiencing the slower, more awestruck, methodical version of Rocky makes the movie experience infinitely richer. You'll appreciate the cinematic choices and the omissions so much more when you intimately know the source material.
And as you finally embark on this journey with Ryland Grace, I want to leave you with one final, much darker concept to ponder. Throughout this deep dive, we've discussed astrophage as a naturally occurring, star-eating plague spreading relentlessly across the cosmos. If we step back and connect this biological mechanism to the bigger picture of our universe, could astrophage be the grim answer to the Fermi paradox?
Oh, wow. The Fermi paradox. The famous contradiction where our universe is billions of years old and unfathomably vast, meaning the probability of extraterrestrial life is incredibly high, yet there is a complete deafening lack of evidence for it. Like, the universe should be teeming with life, but we see nothing.
Exactly. The paradox often suggests there's a great filter, some inevitable evolutionary or cosmic hurdle that wipes out civilizations before they can become spacefaring. Perhaps the reason the night sky seems so eerily quiet isn't because intelligent life is rare.
Oh, man.
Perhaps the universe was once teeming with life, but countless thriving civilizations, societies of artists, engineers, and dreamers have already been quietly, slowly extinguished. Not by war and not by black holes, but by...
That is absolutely chilling. It completely reframes how you look up at the stars at night. You aren't just looking at empty space, you might be looking at a graveyard of planets that couldn't solve the puzzle in time. So the next time you imagine waking up in a small, sterile room millions of miles from home, just remember, it might take a whole lot more than knowing what 2 plus 2 is to save the world. You might just have to science your way out of it.